What if there was a point in your journey where all that searching, all that hoping, simply melted away? Tonight, we're going to talk about the profound, peaceful power that arrives when you finally stop chasing and simply know. This knowing is not mental. It is not logic or reason or intellectual confidence. It is deep, embodied recognition that what you have assumed is now part of you. It is yours, not because the world confirms it, but because you have claimed it in consciousness. This is what I call the silent knowing. Silent because it needs no voice. Knowing because it no longer questions. It simply is. It is the final stage of the creative act. After the assumption, after the feeling, after the stillness. It is the point at which you become the state. Not visiting it, not reaching for it, not affirming it. You are it. This is the difference between imagining yourself rich and being rich in consciousness. Between visualizing love and dwelling as the one who is already loved. It is the difference between a performance and an identity. Once this knowing arises, your thoughts quiet. Not because you force them, but because they're no longer needed. The chatter subsides. The inner commentary fades. And in its place, peace. Not the peace of escape, but the peace of presence. From this place, you no longer manifest through effort or repetition. You manifest through embodiment, through being. You've heard it said, faith is the substance of things hoped for. But silent knowing is more than faith. It is realization. It is no longer hoping for substance. It is standing as it. Now, here is the subtle mastery. Silent knowing does not mean emotional excitement. It does not always come with fireworks or heightened energy. In fact, it often feels incredibly normal, so natural, so matter of fact that your desire loses all urgency. You forget to need it. You forget to wait. You simply continue living, and the desire shows up like a memory remembered. It fits. It belongs. Because you've been living with it inwardly all along. And here's what many miss. This detachment is not indifference. It is inclusion. You are not without your desire. You are one with it. And in that unity, craving disappears. Let's be clear. This is not suppression. It is not pretending not to care. It is full possession at the level of being. When you truly have something, you don't obsess over it. You don't chase it. You carry it lightly. And that is the mark of silent knowing. So how do you arrive at this state? First, you must cease to argue with appearances. Appearances are not your master. They are echoes of old assumption. To invest your energy in fighting them is to resurrect the very state you seek to leave. Instead, begin to act in subtle alignment. This doesn't mean taking massive action or pretending outwardly. It means moving inwardly from the position of already having. Ask yourself, if I truly knew this was mine, how would I feel walking into this room? How would I respond to this situation? What would I not need to do anymore? These are the questions that recalibrate your state. And every time you act, even in the smallest ways, from that knowing, you affirm it more deeply within. Second, simplify. Silent knowing does not multiply technique. It reduces. It stops counting days. Stops comparing timelines. Stops needing feedback from the world. It becomes internal, pure, undistracted. You don't need more books, more affirmations, more techniques. You need trust. And trust, once truly established, simplifies everything. Third, become unbothered by contrast. Life will still bring challenges. That does not mean your assumption failed. It means you are being refined in your embodiment. The temptation to react will be strong, but remember, your state is not determined by what happens. It is demonstrated through how you respond. Let the challenge come. Let the delay stretch. Let the outer world do as it pleases. Your knowing does not bend to it. Your inner world is not a weather vane. You don't need to fix the outer. You need only remain who you have decided to be. And this brings us to perhaps the most liberating aspect of silent knowing. freedom from the need to prove. You don't need to announce your desires. You don't need others to validate your path. You don't need anyone to believe in your dream. Why? Because you know. This inner certainty becomes your sanctuary, your compass, your power. It is not loud. It does not declare itself, but it moves mountains. When others question you, you do not argue. When circumstances seem unchanged, you do not flinch. When doubt knocks, you do not open the door. You smile. You walk on. You carry yourself as the version of you who knows. And the world, though it may take a moment, will catch up. This state is not a reward for effort. It is not the result of grinding spiritual work. It is a choice, a moment of internal agreement. This is who I am now. From that point forward, you protect it, not with fear, but with reverence. Not by speaking it to all, but by letting your energy do the speaking. This is the invisible grace of creation. The world bends not to your striving, but to your alignment. So pause now. Feel the end again, not with effort, but with ease. See it, touch it, smell it, hear it, not out there, but in here, inside you. Then release the image and carry only the feeling. And now walk as though nothing more is required. That is silent knowing, not the loud affirmations of lack, not the anxious visualization of hope, but the quiet presence of truth. Truth, not because it has appeared, but because it has been chosen. Truth, not because others agree, but because you do. And this, my friend, is the unseen force that moves reality. It does not shout. It does not chase. It simply knows. And because it knows, it becomes. Stillness, my friend, is not emptiness. It is not a lack of motion. It is not silence in the absence of sound. Stillness is the vibrational place where all things begin. After you have lived from the end, after you have assumed the state of the wish fulfilled and entered that sacred inner world, there is only one task left. To hold your position, not with strain, not with mental force, but with the relaxed poise of one who knows. And in that knowing, you wait. But this is not the kind of waiting the world has taught you. This is not the passive waiting of time. This is the active waiting of consciousness. It is not waiting for something, but waiting as something. As the person who already has, already is, already knows. This is the creative stillness that turns assumption into embodiment and embodiment into form. To abide in stillness is to build power. Your awareness becomes uncluttered. You stop casting your attention outward like a fisherman's net, and instead let the ocean come to you. Think of the magnet. It does not chase. It simply is. It holds its frequency, and by virtue of that field, everything it needs is drawn to it. This is the power you access when you remain inwardly still. Now, listen closely. Stillness is not stagnation. It is not a state of doing nothing. It is the focused, deliberate withdrawal of your creative power from all that contradicts your chosen state. It is a refusal to react to appearances, a refusal to explain or justify, a refusal to be pulled back into the old identity. Stillness is not indifference, it is alignment. You can still act, move, speak, but you do so as an extension of your assumed state, not in search of evidence to validate it. There is no need to look for signs when you are the sign. In this sacred stillness, something beautiful happens. Time dissolves. Urgency disappears. The obsessive need to make it happen falls away, because once you truly feel that it is done, you begin to rest. Not out of exhaustion, but out of deep alignment. You become the calm center around which life organizes itself. And life will organize itself. That is the law. The outer world is not fit. It is fluid. It is clay waiting for your inner hand to shape it. But that shaping is not done through control or manipulation. It is done through inner persistence, through steadiness, through stillness. Let me share a vital truth with you. Every time you return to the old state, to worry, to checking, to impatience, you introduce friction. You plant the seed, you delay the harvest. But when you remain still, when you sit inside the knowing, unshaken by delay or doubt, you accelerate the inevitable. This is the paradox of spiritual creation. The less you reach, the more quickly it comes. Because what you truly believe does not need to be grasped. It needs only to be held softly, steadily within. Now, some will say, but how do I stay in the state when life keeps distracting me? And to this I say, the distractions are your invitation to return. Every circumstance that tempts you to doubt is a bell calling you back to alignment. Use them. Don't resist them. Let them remind you to reoccupy your chosen state. The world is not your enemy. It is your mirror, and it reflects not your efforts, but your assumptions. So train your awareness. Each time your mind begins to drift, each time fear or doubt emerges, ask yourself, what would I feel if I knew it were already done? That is your compass. That is your access point. Return there again and again. And as you return, you build the muscle of stillness. Stillness is not something you achieve once. It is a rhythm, a practice, a way of being in the world without becoming of it. The still creator is not swayed by the waves. They ride above them. Their eye is on the state, the end, the inner truth, and they let that truth govern all else. In this space, life becomes beautifully simple. There are no more questions of if or when. There is only I am. And when I am becomes your dwelling place, everything else arrives in perfect order. You begin to notice synchronicities, subtle shifts, conversations that confirm, paths opening where none existed. Not because you chase them, but because you align. This is the way of grace, the way of stillness. Stillness is trust in action. It is the language of one who knows the power within is infinitely more potent than anything out there. So sit with your vision, not in hunger, but in fulfillment. Let your inner world be so full, so alive, so done, that nothing outside can tempt you back into the old. When the world appears slow, stay fastened in your truth. When the facts disagree, speak only to the end. Let your imagination be louder than your environment, because imagination is the birthplace of fact. Let us not be fooled by appearances. The world of senses is a trailing effect. It is not real in and of itself. It is the echo of what has already been assumed within. So do not chase echoes. Do not beg shadows. Do not wrestle with reflections. Be still and know that the creative power that formed galaxies lives within you. And it does not need your struggle. It needs your faith. A quiet, unwavering faith that says, I have seen it. I have felt it. It is mine. I rest here. And in that rest, the work is done. Let others hustle and strain. You have found the true engine of creation. Inner stillness anchored in assumption. Let others seek validation. You have chosen self-confirmation. Let others wait for the world to change. You have become the change. This, my dear friend, is the stillness that creates. It is not an act, it is a state. And it is yours now. Hold it, live from it, and let the world reflect the magnificence of your silence. After you have assumed the feeling of the wish fulfilled, after you have entered the end and claimed it as your state, the work becomes one of stillness, not passivity, not waiting, stillness. There is a silence within which all creation unfolds. This stillness is not the absence of movement, but the presence of unwavering belief. The moment you enter the end in imagination, your only task is to remain undisturbed by appearance, to dwell in the knowing that it is done. This stillness is the final frontier. Many can imagine the end, fewer can abide in it. Fewer still can remain unmoved when the outer world reflects the opposite. You must understand, the delay is not denial. The silence is not emptiness. It is the sacred gap between assumption and manifestation. a fertile silence where unseen forces rearrange the visible world. It is here, in the space between the imaginal act and its outer confirmation, that most falter. They doubt, they speak too soon, they shift their state, and so the manifestation weakens. But you, now awakened, will do differently. You will learn the art of spiritual stillness. You will cultivate the quiet, knowing that what you have accepted in consciousness is already finding its way into form. How? By refusing to measure time, refusing to look for signs, refusing to rehearse and re-request. Instead, you rest. Imagine the seed planted in rich soil. The gardener does not dig it up each day to check its progress. He trusts the process. He allows the invisible forces to work beneath the surface. Your assumption is that seed. Your stillness is the fertile ground. Let the seed be. This stillness is not withdrawal from life. It is divine participation in it. You walk, you speak, you live, but inwardly you are anchored in the reality you've chosen. No external fact can dislodge you. No delay can deter you. You are not reacting to the world. The world is reacting to your state. This is the posture of creation. Many confuse stillness with apathy, but apathy is rooted in despair. True stillness is rooted in dominion. You are not indifferent. You are certain. In this certainty, you release the compulsion to prove, to explain, to chase. You move through your days not as one in pursuit of a desire, but as one in possession of it. This is where your transformation deepens. You begin to observe without judgment. You see the facts of your current world, not as truth, but as the outpicturing of a previous state. You cease reacting. You cease labeling. You simply notice and return within. This non-reactive awareness is creative gold. In it, you preserve your state. You guard your inner conviction like a sacred flame. Others may project doubt. Let them. The world may show contradiction. Let it. You are not here to explain yourself to the world. You are here to align with your assumption and let the world catch up. There will come a moment, unexpected yet inevitable, when the outer reality reshapes. And when it does, you will not be surprised. You will not celebrate as though something new occurred. You will smile gently, knowing it had been yours all along. This is the dignity of the still creator. Let me be practical with you. Each morning, reaffirm your end in stillness. Before the world begins to speak to you, speak first to it, through feeling. Sit in quiet and return to the sensation of already having. Let it fill you, let it color your mood, and then rise into the day, not seeking but radiating. Throughout your day, when doubts arise, do not fight them. Fighting creates tension. Instead, acknowledge the thought, then return inward. You do not wrestle shadows. You turn on the light. In conversation, resist the urge to make it real by discussing your desire or convincing others. You need not perform. You are not manifesting to impress. You are embodying truth. Let your life be the quiet evidence. At night, fall asleep once more in the state of the end. Do not replay the day's limitation. Replace them. Revise them. Your imagination is not a place to escape. It is the workshop of reality. Every night you sleep in the state of the wish fulfilled is a night you water the seed. Do not underestimate this practice. You're not asking life to give you what you want. You are preparing the space to receive it. That preparation is done in silence, in stillness, in certainty. Eventually, something curious will happen. You'll forget to think about the desire. You'll forget to check on it. Not because you've lost interest, but because it feels so normal, so assumed, so done, that your mind moves on. This is the final stage, and shortly thereafter, it will appear, often subtly, often perfectly, always faithfully. The world does not resist your desire. It only resists your doubt. When you become still, you remove that resistance. You create the perfect conditions for manifestation, a mind aligned, a heart at peace, and a state that does not shift. So I ask you now, can you be still, knowing it is done? Can you move through the world without grasping? Can you trust the imaginal seed to bloom, even when no evidence appears? This is your test. This is your invitation. Not to do more, but to believe deeper. Not to effort, but to align. Not to chase, but to become. This stillness is not emptiness. It is fullness, already received. And when you master it, you will manifest, not by trying, but by being, in silence, in faith, in stillness that creates. When you grasp that you are the operant power, the natural question that follows is not, what do I do? But, who must I be? This shift in focus, from doing to being, is where manifestation truly begins. It is not effort that moves reality. It is identity. You are not here to hustle your way into a new life. You are here to inhabit it now, in imagination and feeling, long before it becomes visible. To live from the end is to make the feeling of the fulfilled desire your hope. Not your visit, not your weekend getaway. Your home, the state in which you abide, not occasionally, but consistently. This practice is not based on willpower or constant repetition. It is based on selection. Every moment presents you with a choice. Will you remain in your current state, dictated by appearances? Or will you choose the inner experience of what you desire as your truth? The world has taught you to observe, to analyze, to wait. But living from the end is the opposite. It requires that you leap ahead in consciousness, not through time, but through assumption. You assume the position, the identity, the reality that matches your desire. Not someday, today. You walk as if, not pretending, not forcing, but embodying. Your speech shifts. Your posture shifts. Your emotional baseline shifts. And it does so not because the outer world told you to celebrate, but because you decided that the inner celebration is real enough. This is not delusion. It is causation. The outer must follow the inner, not the other way around. Let us go deeper. Ask yourself, what would a person feel? What would they believe about themselves, about life? How would they carry themselves? How would they move through the day? Now realize you can occupy that version of yourself right now. No permission required. No gatekeepers. No conditions to meet. There is no need to wait for a bank balance, a relationship status, a diagnosis, or an achievement. You shift by choice, not by circumstance. And that is the greatest secret of all. Most people remain trapped in the middle. They ask, how do I get from where I am to where I want to be? But the question itself betrays a false belief that the journey is linear, that it must be earned. In truth, the only distance between you and your desire is your assumption. An assumption is not a process. It is an act of faith, of imagination, of inner certainty. When you fully live from the end, you stop needing evidence. You no longer seek signs, synchronicities, or approval. Those things may still come, but they are no longer your anchor. Your anchor is internal. Your trust lies in consciousness. And yet, this shift is not without challenge. Because the moment you choose the end, the old state will resist. Not because it is powerful, but because it is familiar. Habits of mind and emotion will rise like waves. Doubts will speak. Circumstances will test your resolve. This is not failure. This is the shedding of the old. You must meet this process with love, not fear. You must allow discomfort without letting it define you. You are not your fear. You are not your reaction. You are the one who chooses what state to return to. That is your true power. Persistence in the end is not forcing your will. It is simply remembering who you are again and again. Every time your mind wanders to lack, you gently bring it back to the fulfilled state. Every time emotion tempts you to spiral, you re-enter the feeling of it already done. This is spiritual discipline, not suffering, but sovereignty. Understand, living from the end is not pretending that your desire has happened. It is feeling that it has, and letting that feeling become your reality. You may still act, still engage with life, still take inspired steps, but none of these are done to make it happen. They are done because it has happened in consciousness. This subtle reversal makes all the difference. You don't act to get, you act because you have. Your movement becomes an expression of inner certainty, not a quest for validation. Now, let us consider timing. When you live from the end, time bends. The natural laws of delay and resistance begin to dissolve. Manifestations arrive not through predictable steps, but through unseen corridors. Paths you could never have planned, people you could never have expected, events you couldn't have orchestrated. This is not magic, it is law. When your state of consciousness aligns perfectly with your desire, life must reflect that. Not might, must. So your greatest task is not to make things happen, but to maintain the state that implies they already have. That is the art of spiritual stillness. That is the real work, and it is work, not in the worldly sense, but in the inner sense. The work of remembering, of re-entering, of stabilizing. The work of being. You may ask, how do I know I am living from the end? You know by how you feel. The one who has already received does not doubt, does not chase, does not ask if it's working. They rest, they trust, they move through life with a quiet confidence, a softness, a joy that isn't dependent on anything. That is your indicator. That is your sign. Let me be very direct. You must choose to believe in the unseen more than in the seen. You must prioritize imagination over evidence, feeling over fact, assumption over appearance. And if you do this, not just once, but as a way of life, the seen world will conform. Your bank account will shift. Your relationships will realign. Your health, your career, your circumstances will begin to mirror the inner conviction you carry. But only after you stop needing them to. Because only when you no longer look to the world to prove your state, does your state begin to prove itself in the world. This is the paradox. When you truly live from the end, you no longer care whether or not the thing appears. Not because you've given up, but because you have received it already within. That is the final test. So I invite you, tonight as you lie down to sleep, drop the story of who you were. Let go of the identity that keeps you waiting, wondering, wanting, and enter the feeling of your desire fulfilled. Not in a frantic way, not in desperation, but as an act of sacred remembrance. Remember who you are. You are not the one becoming. You are the one being. You are not a seeker. You are the source. You are not waiting for life to respond. You are life, shaping itself around the state you choose. This is what it means to live from the end. This is the sacred path of manifestation. Choose it now, and never look back.